Hello everybody and welcome to this new video in my series and we're doing things a little bit differently today. So I've got a guest with me today and it's Sam Whiteside from Whiteside Wellbeing. And if I just explain a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing, I met Sam through a local business women's group and our core demographic of clients is very, very similar. So I work predominantly with women and sort of by accident, not really by design. A lot of the women that I work with are in midlife. I don't really like that word, but I haven't come up with a better one. And one of the many things that they're going through, I get people coming to me going through life changes, and that might be, the kids not needing them as much. It might be that transition between looking after the kids and looking after elderly parents. It might be facing retirement. But the one thing that is a very common theme is menopause. And this is something that we have very little control over, and sometimes it can sneak up on us and really sort of shake us up. It can be a pivotal point in our lives where we start questioning things. And it also can throw up symptoms and sort of mental health issues, for want of a better word, that we don't normally have, and we can wonder where that's all coming from. So I'm going to be chatting with Sam about that for the next, I don't know, I'm not putting a time on it. And just because of the subject matter, I thought I don't normally do a trigger warning for my videos, but I thought it would be sensible. We are going to be discussing mental health issues. There may be reference to suicide. So if that's something that you feel may trigger you, then maybe skip this video or get in touch. So I met Sam, as I said, through a local business women's association. She is a qualified GP who specialises in menopause, and she's also a qualified counsellor. So I'm just going to throw over to you, Sam, if you can just introduce yourself and just tell us a little about what it is that you do and what brought you to working in this area of medicine.
Hi Karen, and thanks for the introduction. I feel like you've given a really good overview there. Probably what I can do is put a little bit of timeline and perspective onto it. So yeah,
Sure.
my name's Sam, or Dr. Whiteside. Timeline wise, I've been a doctor now for over 25 years, which makes me feel really old, and clearly a woman of a certain age. And for about 19 of those years, I've been a GP. About 15 of those years, I've been a British Menopause Society trained menopause specialist. And now for about 6.5 years almost, I've been a trained counsellor. And I suppose it's a long journey, but it's led me to where I am, and I'm very happy where I am. At the moment, I still work 2 to 3 days a week as a GP locum. I choose to work that variety. And when I say days, it's generally school hour days because I've still got, well, secondary school kids. So I like to be able to drop them off, pick them up when I need to. And in terms of Whiteside Wellbeing, that's really become a culmination over the years. Started off, it was simply, well, let's say simply counselling. It was only counselling. And I was counselling anybody initially, but as the last few years have gone on, it was primarily women. It was mostly mums, and then it almost niched itself up. Don't know what was think of the word niche, but it's now often midlife women. And I know you said you don't like the word midlife. I do quite like it because if it's not midlife, I hear the word perimenopause, and to me that medicalizes it too much. Whereas midlife is like, probably is midlife. Perimenopause is very medical. So within Whiteside Wellbeing, I combine my GP knowledge, my menopause knowledge, my counselling training to give emotional wellbeing and mental health support to midlife women. And I do that either in person or online.
Perfect. Lovely. Thanks for the intro. I have got some questions on paper in case you see me looking down. We've discussed this before, obviously, so that Sam was happy with the questions that I was going to ask. So if you see me glancing down, I'm just making sure I'm not going completely off-piste. So first question then is, what's the most common symptom that women suffer which prompts them to ask for help?
So it's not really one symptom, as I'm sure you can imagine. There are so many symptoms of menopause that it's normally a collection of symptoms, and it's either because as much as I don't like saying it because I am a GP, they feel that their GP won't listen to their cluster of symptoms at whatever age they're presenting at. It's that their GP might not understand the symptoms, may not know how to manage them, or has, quite appropriately gone down maybe first or second line management for the symptoms, and it's just not under control. So it's generally a cluster of symptoms that they come to me with. and they like the fact that I can give this sort of holistic overview of all my background and training. And it's a 1 hour appointment, a 1 hour session initially with me, where I'll ask about as many symptoms as I can think of or that they can think of, speak about their past medical history, obstetric, gynae history, family history, exercise, nutrition, water, alcohol. If any of my past or present patients listen to this, they'll know it's a long list, but it's worthwhile. So it's like a cluster of symptoms, but just the way it seems to be self-selecting now, a lot of it is mental health, emotional well-being type symptoms. And within the realms of that, it's anxiety is a common one, poor sleep, and the sort of typical brain fog, word finding difficulty. They're actually thinking, they're worried they're going mad. They want to know if it'll pass, or equally like, am I getting dementia? So that would be the commonest ones within the sort of emotional well-being and mental health sphere.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, it is common for it to be a group of symptoms because I think if you just get one or another, as women, we tend to just get on with things, don't we? We just sort of,
Yeah.
oh, it's just one of those things. And I think, sort of societally, and my mum's generation and beyond it was just one of those things. You just got on with it. I mean, there wasn't the
Yeah.
help that there is available now, but even if there
Yeah.
was, you probably wouldn't ask for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So given that sort of societal history around menopause, what do you feel are the biggest myths around menopause that are still floating about that you'd like to debunk?
Yeah. I mean, I think if we go back to the point you made about our mums or that kind of similar age and then their experiences of it. So often I will hear my patients who are, generally similar ages to me, either a few years younger, a few years older, will say, well, my mum didn't have any symptoms, or my mum didn't have many symptoms, or she just got on it with it, or her periods all stopped and that was that. And in some respects, there will be a degree of recall bias. Our brain tends to not remember bad things that happen a lot of the time. So that's past and they don't remember it. Equally, at that time, a few decades ago, and certainly the generation before that, there was a lot of difference in societies where women, they may not have been working full time
Mhm.
and looking after kids. They equally, they wouldn't have had like obesity wasn't as big as it
Mhm.
was then. About 30 to 40% of perimenopausal women are sort of overweight and into the obese category, which has a huge impact on symptoms and treatment options. Ultra processed foods are a thing just now, which can
Mhm.
make some of our symptoms worse in terms of sweats and anxiety. Um, they probably did a lot more physical exercise than us, which helps to keep symptoms under control, and that they wouldn't have driven as much or as often. And equally, they probably, alcohol and poor sleep will often play a part in the symptoms we have. And many women these days will drink on a weekly basis or more often a monthly basis. And previously, that wasn't the case.
Mhm.
So, there's all of these lifestyle and generational differences, which in some cases probably to a degree what our mums and our grands went through, it probably wasn't the same.
Mm. Yeah.
But in terms of sort of current myths, it was sort of start with the non-mental health things, and we spoke about symptoms. It's about 75% of women that'll get hot flushes. So not all women get hot flushes and
Mhm.
sweats. Obviously, it's a big percentage, but it's 75%. Um, a lot of women, because I also ask about libido during my huge list of questions, will say, well, it's not been good since I had the kids, or well, I'm always tired, or but that's normal, isn't it? Well, it's not actually always normal, because there's so many factors that come into play with our libido, our energy, yes, our hormones, our relationship status. And in fact, many women in the perimenopause will find that their libido actually increases because of the relative ratio changes of some of the hormones. They'll feel like during their 40s, their libido actually goes up. So losing your libido isn't necessarily normal. Um, One of the other bigger ones would be about weight gain being inevitable. Yes, there's a degree that if weight gain, does happen. It is harder to shift weight, but actually, when you look at the studies, perimenopausal weight gain is only actually anything up to about 4 kilograms. It's not huge. And in terms of being able to manage your nutrition better and do appropriate exercise, you can keep it under control. You can lose weight in the perimenopause. So I wouldn't like women to become resigned to it.
Mhm.
Okay, it's harder, but it's not inevitable. Um, Being too old for treatment is another one. I just had a lady say to me yesterday, she said, well, the last GP told me I was too old. It's not true. We can talk about, medical and non-medical treatments later maybe, but often women think that it's been too long and they can't have treatment. And another myth, I guess, is obviously menopause has been spoken about massively over the last 3, 5 years maybe, and so is mental health. And I suppose I'm losing perspective on what everybody is being exposed to because it's always
Mm.
in my it's in my work, it's in my LinkedIn
Yes.
feed, it's in my Facebook feed. But I don't want women to think that, that all women get tearful or that all women get depressed or all women get anxious or suicidal, because that is not the case. Okay.
No.
Some women, this will be a relatively straightforward thing. And in terms of mental health statistics, um, there's a 40% increased risk of depression within the perimenopausal years compared to other years in our life. So yes, it's a reasonable statistic,
Mhm.
but it's not everyone. About 50% of women will have anxiety. Okay, so not everyone. And the anxiety can be split into sort of one of two camps, really. It could be a generalized ongoing anxiety, daytime worries about, well, anything and everything, or it can be sort of the classic waking between 1 and 3 during the nighttime and
Mm.
having blinding panic attacks and ruminating over what's happened or what's going to happen. And in terms of this brain fog and cognition, which I touched on earlier, it's about 60% of women that are affected with that. So it's not everyone. So given everything that is going around in the media and whatnot, I don't want every woman to feel that this is going to happen, because it's not necessarily going to
Yeah.
happen. And actually, the percentage of clinically significant depression within the perimenopause and menopause years is just, well, I say just, it would be ideal if it was nothing, but it's 2 to 4%.
Okay.
By clinically significant, I mean actually needing medical treatment and not lifestyle changes. They really do need medical intervention. Um, uh, and the statistics that do sound more shocking alongside that are that within your perimenopause years, you're 7 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts than at any other time in your life as a female.
Mm.
So compared to as a teenage girl, woman, young person, compared to postnatally, it's 7 times higher within those perimenopause years.
Wow.
And the statistic that scares me is the fact that the peak suicide rate in Scotland for women is between the ages of 45 to 54.
Wow.
I mean, that is clearly around the perimenopause and menopause
Mhm.
years. And that absolutely doesn't mean that it's just due to hormones. Clearly, as I'm sure we'll touch on, there's elderly or dying parents, there's
Mm.
potentially relationships that are failing, there's children leaving home, there's works getting busy, but the suicide rate is highest in Scotland between the ages of 45 to 54. The overall UK statistic says 50 to 54. And obviously, like these things, it depends what studies you
Mm.
read.
Yeah.
Those statistics are slowly coming down. Those percentages
Good.
are slowly coming down. But yeah, that's how it stands. So yeah, I hope that answers the question,
Yeah,
Karen.
absolutely. And it is it, I'm going to come on to another question at the moment about talking therapies, but it is you mentioned earlier on that some people come to you because they just haven't got the help that they wanted from their GP, and we all know that the NHS is under incredible pressure at the moment. But
Yeah.
I know when I first went to my GP, and I was quite early going through into perimenopause. I was sort of 37, 38 when I finally went to the GP, and that was just because of massive uncontrollable mood swings. I was like bouncing off the walls one day and then on the floor in tears the next. And
Yeah.
when I went initially with those symptoms, my GP said, "Oh, well, I'm going to put you on antidepressants.
Yeah.
And it was me that pushed for some tests to see what we were actually dealing with. And the test that I had to really push for was the hormone test because it was just, oh, well, you're too young. I said, yeah,
Yeah.
but sort of the point, that I'm trying to get to. And
Yeah.
but even when we got the test results back and she said, yeah, you're actually in perimenopause, she still said at that point, perimenopause and anxiety and depression do go hand in hand. So an antidepressant is still a valid method of treatment if you want to go down that route. And at the time, for me, it was just I chose not to, and that's not saying anything about somebody who does choose to go down that route. For me, it was just that, oh, now I know what it is. Because
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
that not knowing what was causing these wild swings was terrifying. And knowing what it was gave me the strength to look at other options and to just sort of have that comfort of knowing that this is something physical that's happening to me rather than I'm going, completely mad.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
that brings me on to a little bit because at the time, what helped me at that time was to have some counselling, and it wasn't really counselling
Okay.
about the menopause. There was other stuff going on in my life, but it just felt like it was stuff that I would normally have coped with and then just couldn't. So I did have some counselling, and I found that really, really helpful. Um, so it brings me on to nicely to my next question, which was, I know that you offer counselling services as part of your
Hmm.
service. What do you see as the benefits of talking therapies alongside medical intervention? And is one more powerful than the other, or is it a complementary approach?
Yeah. So I guess the benefits of counseling are first and foremost being heard, being
Mm,
able to express everything that's happening and get it out in the open in, as cliches as it sounds, in a safe space.
yeah.
Okay. It's a safe space and um a confidential space. And a lot of women do find it reassuring that I'm a GP as well and that I am really experienced because they're not afraid to mention if they're having really dark thoughts,
Mm,
because I think they feel that I will say I'm used to it. I am used to hearing it, and I can handle it. I can cope with that. So it's a safe and confidential space to talk about all the sort of the multiple stresses that are going on, the life changes both physically and
mm,
emotionally, empty nest syndrome, relationships ending, looking after parents. So it's talking through all of those things, and the counselling can also I can employ some CBT techniques, cognitive behavioral therapy type techniques that can help with sleep management and anxiety. I've also done some coaching for counselors training, so I can employ some coaching techniques
mhm,
if women need a wee bit of direction of undoing all of this muddle, for want of a better word, as what do they want to focus on,
mhm,
what do they think they need to focus on, and sometimes just talking it all through can make it become obvious. Well, actually, I need to do this first. I need to reduce my work, or actually, I need to get medical treatment, or I need to just come here and cry because my husband, my sister, my best friend, my work colleagues are fed up of seeing me crying. That kind of thing.
yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean, I know I found my husband was and always has been very, very understanding and supportive, but it's not his lived experience. Obviously,
yeah,
men are their hormones are very level, whereas ours are, we're used to ours being a bit more cyclical and up and down, but this was on another level. Um, and I just found that I couldn't verbalize what I was feeling to him. And it was the counseling really that helped me get to a point where I could explain what was happening to him. So he had some more
yeah,
understanding, so he could be
yeah,
more supportive. And
yeah,
for me to start to say, this is what I need from you or from my life, or this is what I need to get rid of.
yeah,
So yeah, I found it really, really helpful in that respect.
yeah,
Um, so you talked a little bit about the last few years, menopause has been a little bit more in the public eye. People like Davina McCall and that have brought it very much to the fore. Um, and sort of at the time when I was going through menopause, there was an awful lot of scaremongering still around HRT.
yeah,
And I think a lot of that has been debunked, but I think
yeah,
there are still some people who are wary of it. So what
yeah.
would you say to anyone who's still wary of trying HRT to try and manage their symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the yeah, it was like the big study that was done, and I mean I'm losing track of time in lots of ways, but it was about 20 years, maybe 25 years ago. I feel it was like not long after I graduated in the grand
Mm,
scheme of things. There's a big study, which was now found to be poorly done, that gave this big fear factor. And I remember then when I was training, a lot of women came off HRT, and then there was the huge amount of them were suffering and terrified to go back on treatment. So yeah, I guess that's what we're alluding to. But what is important to know is, or remember, is that HRT now is really quite different to the HRT where even when I
Yeah.
graduated, which is
Yeah.
scary for me to say. The estrogen, the HRTs, then there were higher doses.
Mhm.
Some of the estrogens were synthetic estrogens. So, for example, there was the equine estrogens from horses'
Mhm.
urine.
Mhm.
Some of that's still knocking about. Well, I believe it's more and more out of circulation,
Thankfully.
thankfully. And it was mostly in pill form, and
Mm.
pill form for the estrogen anyway. Generally speaking, has the higher risk in terms of thrombosis and blood clots because it's metabolized through the liver. But these days, most of the estrogen, with the exception of some of this equine stuff that's still managing to potter around but is going out of circulation, is bioidentical estrogen. It's the same estrogen that is or has or was in our body anyway, and it can come in non-oral forms if that's the safest option, whether it be the patch. Everybody's heard
Mhm.
of patch, I'm sure. There's the gel, there's a spray as well, that's less known of. So yes, it's generally lower dose. There's a lot of bioidentical options, and it comes in transdermal forms, which are safer because they don't go through what's called the first pass metabolism of the liver. So equally, I think like when I was in the 80s and 90s, my mum would have been probably perimenopausal, menopausal. It's like it felt like even then celebrities and people were on it because it was like this huge, it was the best anti-aging thing, and it made you look good and feel good and everything. And I suppose some women still want that, but it's more targeted now with these. I've got quite a long list of safety questions I ask, to
Mm.
make sure this is safe for them: family history, personal history, and what are your symptoms. So I will use different progesterones for, women that might be anxious, or, if, as we've said, a number of women are overweight, myself included, are overweight these days, or maybe do still smoke. So transdermal options are safer. So it's much more honed as
Mm.
a more personalized, probably, as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
And I mean, that's the end of the question, so to speak. But I think you touched on it there about the fact that, HRT was used to keep you looking and feeling young. And there's
yeah.
this real conflict for me in terms of societal pressure, because on one side, we're being told that, menopause isn't just part of getting old. You don't have to put up with these symptoms. We can embrace our midlife years, and we can still feel good and all this sort of stuff. But then there's also this societal pressure to keep looking young
Hmm.
and not accept our grey hairs and go for cosmetic surgery and all this sort of stuff. And just find that really unhelpful sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so I think, and that's really, really difficult to manage and to resist, I think, when you are low in energy and tired and you brain fog and all that sort of thing. And we talked about the weight side of things as well. And I think that's sometimes as a result of this sort of low energy and feeling tired, and it's easier just to grab something sugary because that gives you an instant boost and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really pleased that menopause is being talked about more, and there are wonderful people like you who women can go to, and just get a sense of whatever they're dealing with is normal.
It is normal. Yes, it is normal. And like we've said, not all women get all of the symptoms. And I think it would be useful to sort of separate to some extent the fact, the grey hairs or the hairs that's falling out in chunks in the shower, the wrinkles, all that kind of stuff, and separate that out from the flushes and sweats that are so debilitating that we can't get through our job, or that we can't sleep, or the anxiety that's causing us huge distress, or you know also to remember that, again, our parents' generation, or our mums, and certainly grandmas before that, they weren't living as long as us.
Mm,
Okay, if we think of life expectancy, and this is a point I do like to push, is that our estrogen does drop clearly. our progesterone does drop, and very slowly our testosterone follows. It's the last one to sort of drop off. And, estrogen particularly, it does protect our bones. It
Mm.
protects our bones against osteoporosis. It helps our lipid profile, so our different cholesterols, fats in our blood, and it helps our sort of cardiovascular fitness, brain and heart. So yeah, you might be okay to put up with flushes and sweats and all the rest of it, but if you're 50, for example, you could be alive for another 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, my nan, she lived till she was 99, so here's hoping. It would be good to have strong bones. It would be good to have a healthy cardiovascular system, and HRT is very good at that, and that's one of its licensed indications. So there is that element of it as well, because although yes, exercise, healthy nutrition can help a lot, to my knowledge and having asked at conferences and etc., it can't help quite as well as HRT, because those hormones are gone or are going. So, that's an important point, I think, especially if somebody is of slim build, or, has a family history of osteoporosis, history of eating disorders, has been on certain medications over the years that can cause thinning of the bones. That's important. If you fracture a big bone, your hip, there's a high mortality attached to that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you said there about, our life expectancy these days. I follow somebody on social media called Eleanor Mills, and
No.
she's coined the term Queen Agers.
Yeah.
As her organization is called Noon, because she says in
Okay.
the 100-year life, 50
Yeah.
is just past noon, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it is about not just living longer, but living a quality life longer, isn't it? And protecting
Yeah.
ourselves so that we can do all these brilliant, because midlife women, often get sort of written off by society, but we've got so much more to give. We've got this wealth of experience. And if we can get ourselves feeling physically well, then we've got an awful lot to give to the world. So yeah. So I'm going to put all your contact details in the notes below this video. But just quickly, if people wanted to get hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
Yes, I've got a website, so it's www.whitesidewellbeing.com. There's a Facebook page as well, Whiteside Wellbeing, and I'm on LinkedIn as Dr. Samantha Whiteside. My sort of email and WhatsApp numbers are on those if people want to get hold of me.
Okay, that's great. I'll put all these in the notes. Anything else that you want to say just to sort of finish us off? Anything that you really feel is important to get out there?
Yes, it would be like the non-HRT options. I mean, you touched briefly on the antidepressants that you were offered
Hmm.
at that time, which is appropriate. I could go into the science behind it all, and maybe I will briefly, but in fact, I will. Is that okay if I
Yeah,
do? Just to explain
absolutely.
this. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so basically, estrogen has receptors in various parts of our brains, as does testosterone and progesterone. And estrogen helps in those particular areas of the brain to get serotonin across the blood-brain barrier. And many people know serotonin as the happy hormone.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why our mood can dip. We can get low mood in perimenopause, is because the estrogen's dropping or fluctuating hugely. The serotonin levels are dropping or are all over the place. So many antidepressants are serotonin reuptake inhibitors. That's their technical name, many of them, not all of them. So that's why they do help. So sometimes it's very appropriate for those to be first line. Sometimes it's HRT, and a number of women can be helped by both. Equally, progesterone in women is a natural anti-anxiety hormone. So that's why progesterone can be helpful. That's just a wee bit of science. But there are other non-hormone options available. Really old-fashioned one, clonidine, works for some people for flushes. There's medications like pregabalin and gabapentin. They're classically nerve painkillers, but they're also helpful for hot flushes. They're non-hormonal, and pregabalin's good for anxiety. There's NK3 inhibitors. They're very new on the market. So don't just think of it as HRT, and don't just think of it as antidepressants and or HRT. There are other things available. So that's why it is worthwhile speaking to your GP or somebody like myself, or, go to a menopause group, people having chats. There are more options than you're probably aware of, is what I would say. And I know that you do coaching, Karen, and you hold women's group, and those are hugely helpful. And I've seen the feedback that you get from them, and the women love them. They love, again, that safe space. They can talk to one another, get reassurance. They can come up with plans as to what they want to do, etc. So yeah, there's many ways of helping this situation, shall we say? As
The place
queen
we find
ages,
ourselves in as queenagers, yeah. Yeah,
puberty in reverse.
I think that the important thing to bring out of all this is that there is a massive amount of information out of there. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And I think the temptation is to try and go it alone and just wade through all this information. But there are people out there that can help you. People like Sam, people like just a group of women. If we can bring this so that it's something that we talk about and can share information and share experience, I think that's really, really valuable to everybody. But if you've got any questions at all about this, please do reach out to myself or reach out to Sam or reach out to me and I can put you in touch with Sam. And yeah, let's get ourselves feeling well so that we can make the most of our midlife status and live healthy and happy long lives.
Excellent.
So
Thanks, Karen.
thanks very much, Sam, for coming along. And as I say, I'll put all
Welcome.
your details in the notes. And yeah, hopefully, if anybody needs to get hold of you, then they'll be able to find you.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Take
Thanks
care.
everyone for watching. And if you want to get further videos in this series, please do like and hit the notification bell, and then you'll be notified as soon as I launch another video. So thanks very much for now.